I feel like I should just open like every video with the intro to Break the Ice by Britney Spears, because I'm always like, hey, it's been a while. I would apologize, but I feel like you guys kind of know what I'm about by now. YouTube is not my favorite social media platform. Filming videos is not something I am 100% comfortable with. So you're more likely to hear from me on Instagram or writing articles or something like that, or being in other people's videos. I'm just not really good at like doing my own. But I am aware, I get the notifications that people commenting on my stuff, and people say that they like my YouTube channel, and people are actually subscribing to me, so I feel like I should throw you guys a bone. Only I didn't really know what bone to throw. And I was like, I don't have anything to say, I don't know what to give you. And then I asked, and a lot of people suggested a Q&A video, and I asked for some questions, and I got a lot of them. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. This is going to be my first Q&A on this channel. A lot of the questions came from Twitter and Instagram. My favorite out of those two being Instagram. That's a judgment on the platform, not a judgment on the people who sent the questions. And yeah, they were mainly related to asexuality, aromanticism, and also just about me and my personality and my interests and stuff. So it should be a decent way to get to know me better if you're interested in that kind of thing. Don't know if you are, but we'll see by how many views it gets. So as I got so many questions, I'm not going to be giving like 5-minute long answers to each of them, otherwise we would be here all day and I would have to call this a feature-length film and not a YouTube video. But I'm going to try and answer as many as I can, and try not to answer questions that seem like they're almost the same, because some people wanted to know some pretty similar stuff. So I'm just going to go through these in no particular order, and yeah, see what happens. I'm not going to say like who sent the questions, because I didn't ask for permission to tell people's usernames and stuff, so I'm just going to call all of these anonymous, even though I know who sent them. So someone asked on Twitter, how do you deal with the disheartening thought that no one will want to be in a sincere relationship with you because they want sex and you don't? They didn't specify whether they meant romantic relationships in that. Not to be controversial, but like, not everyone wants to have sex with me. I managed to have friendships where they don't want to do me, and I think that they're sincere. I haven't tested it, but I think they're pretty sincere. So that's not really a worry for me. I think it's very possible to just have relationships with people where they have that kind of understanding. Maybe if I wasn't aromantic, I would have more to say in response to this question, but I am aromantic, so I do not. Someone asked, how did you know you were black, asking for a friend? Well, when I was a kid, I looked at my mom, I looked at my dad, I looked at their parents, and I looked at their parents who were still alive, and I was like, huh, black. How do you deal with aphobia, in case it doesn't bother you, which I hope so? Do you have any tips or advice? How do I deal with it? Most of the time it's coming from people who are like really irrelevant. I don't really care what irrelevant people have to say, so that's kind of how I deal with it. Like if it was coming from someone I actually cared about, then I'd be like, oh, okay, that's disappointing. But usually it's just coming from like random people on the internet who are like borderline anonymous and completely irrelevant to every fiber of my existence. So why would I put much emphasis on what they have to say about anything? And do I have any tips or advice for dealing with aphobia? Again, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, how relevant are these people? How relevant are their opinions? Usually they're not very relevant. Like, I feel like I do not encounter a huge amount of aphobia, like, in real life. A lot of it is online. A lot of it is coming from complete strangers, and strangers aren't important. So, that'd be my advice. Like, don't put too much emphasis on it. Sometimes I think people kind of inevitably feed the trolls, and then that just kind of baits them, and then they just do it even more. So just, like, ignore it and do you. Just do you, dude. How does it feel to be a source of inspiration and a voice for lots of ace people? Does that make you scared or glad? So the first half of the question about being a source of inspiration, well, that's always a lovely thing. Like if someone tells me that I inspired them in any way, then I love that. It's always nice to know that you're making a positive impact on the world. So yeah, I love that. Being a voice for lots of ace people, it's very flattering that anyone would think that I would be a good voice or would want me to be a voice. I've never really seen myself as being the most articulate of people or the most likely to represent anybody in any capacity ever. Um, and yeah, it is a bit frightening, I must admit. There's a lot of pressure on me, a lot of eyes on me. Recently, I became more aware that like people put me on a huge pedestal, and that is stressful. So yeah, I'm both happy about it, I'm both very proud of it, and I'm also like stressed by it and mildly terrified. So that's an answer. Um, if you could be roommates with one Disney character, who would you choose? Hmm. See, I would say Stitch, but I feel like he'd be annoying as hell. So maybe that the teapot from Beauty and the Beast. They seem cute and chill. So I don't even remember what its name was. The teapot. You know the cute teapot? Yeah, that one. Back when it was a teapot though, because I feel like that'd be practical for like room. You almost want taking up too much space in your room, and a teapot would be easy to contain. So yeah, teapot in teapot form. Love your teapot. How did you get into activism? I just there was the ACE conference in 2018 was in London, which isn't far from where I live. So I just asked them like, do you need any help with anything? And they asked if I wanted to be a speaker, and then I was, and it just literally snowballed from there. And I did like a YouTube video. I think my first YouTube video was about things not to say to asexual girls, and then that kind of became like my most popular video probably, and like my first ever video, and one I didn't really expect people to care about that much, and then it just kind of snowballed, and now I'm just riding the wave really. So ooh, what do you think is a problematic issue within the ace community that isn't talked about enough? Ooh, y'all gonna get me in trouble. I think that we need to acknowledge that there is a reason why the ace community is predominantly represented by white people, and that those are the voices that get amplified the most, and that those are the people that others are most comfortable with and most likely to support. I think we need to just kind of address that, like, the ace community is not immune to racism. Like, I have experienced some within the ace community, and a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that that's a thing. They don't want to acknowledge that they have biases because they kind of see themselves as being part of an oppressed group, and therefore they're not likely to oppress others. But I've always said, like, for the LGBT plus community in general, like, being part of another minority group does not make you immune to like racial bias. And I don't know, I feel like the ace community needs to acknowledge that as well. And also, I know, I feel like a lot of people in the community are very sensitive, particularly online. We're so used to like getting so much slack that I think it makes a lot of us like very defensive, and that means that it kind of stifles a lot of conversations that could be useful to have, because people are quite quick to feel invalidated or worried about invalidating somebody, or they don't want to seem like they're gatekeeping or exclusionary. And I know, I feel like sometimes people with certain ace experiences don't really feel like they can talk. I just like noticed that, or like there's always like an issue when you kind of like acknowledge certain types of experiences. So I feel like that's something that like would be helpful to address, but it's a tricky one. Advice for ace activists. My advice would be stay in your lane. Because there are activists that see it as being a bit of a competition, and it's very easy to accidentally step on some toes. I have done it. And don't feel the need to talk too much. And I know that kind of seems like counterproductive, because activists are meant to talk and share their opinions, but there's also like this pressure to kind of be on the ball all the time and always be commenting on something, or always giving people something to react to, because that's what they look to you for. And the more you talk, the more you try to please people, the more likely you are to piss somebody off and say something that someone else doesn't like, and before you know it, that can snowball into something, and it's very hard to earn trust back when that happens. And the internet kind of magnifies things, and I know, I would just say be careful with talking too much. Sometimes you just gotta kind of rein yourself in and let the work speak for itself. What do you like to do besides modeling and activism? Like video games, watch movies, read books, amusement parks, fairs, etc. Well, I definitely like reading books. books. I'm a bit of a bookworm. I am currently going through a historical fiction phase, so I'm like obsessed with Ken Follett. I've read Pillars of the Earth. I've read World Without End. I'm currently reading The Calm of Fire. I've read Code to Zero, and I also went through a phase where I was reading a lot of Fyodor Dostoevsky, Karamazov Brothers, and Crime and Punishment, and some of his short stories, and Resurrection was Tolstoy, actually. I was also reading some like Civil War series called North and South by John Jakes. So yeah, that's what I'm into. I like playing Sims 4. I'm like obsessed with Sims 4. I mean, in lockdown there isn't that much that I can do, but in general I do love a good theme park, but I haven't been to a theme park in so many years. You're probably more likely to find me wandering around a forest somewhere. Like that's what I'm more likely to do to kill time. What is it like to be an asexual model? I don't know, it's just like being a model with I don't know. I've written essays about it, but like it really, in reality, it's not a huge impact, really. It's only challenging if I'm trying to like channel a certain sexual energy, and I'm very much just imitating it because I don't feel it myself, but it doesn't make a huge difference, to be honest. Advice for asexual newbies. Find like-minded people, but don't spend too much time on social media. Like, I was not one of those Tumblr races. I did not really find out about asexuality through social media. I was not involved deeply in any kind of asexual community when I was like a ace newbie. I just kind of took the information I needed, and then I went back and did my homework and just lived my life. And I think that can be helpful, just because there's just so many like debates and discourse and like labels and politics and stuff that you don't really need to get into, I think, when you're just trying to work out like what terms work for you. So yeah, don't spend too much time on social media. What's your favorite TV or movie genre? I like comedies. I don't watch like many comedic movies, but like on TV, if I have something playing in the background, I'd rather it was kind of funny. Like Family Guy. I have a very like American frat boy sense of humor. Or just like playing Friends in the background or something like that. Superstore, I love Superstore. Kind of just like bright and breezy shows like that. I don't really watch that many movies, but when I do, yeah. Actually, for movies it doesn't really matter if it's comedy or not. I'm very specific with the movies I devote my time to, and I kind of prefer movies I've already seen, and I just rewatch those rather than going out looking for new things. This is a good one. Where is your accent from? It's definitely mostly British, but I feel like there's a slight twang that I can't place. Maybe regional, probably just me. No, it's definitely not just you. I get asked this question all the time whenever I meet someone new. My accent is Berkshire with a hint of Nickelodeon. I watched way too much Nickelodeon as a kid, apparently, and Cartoon Network, and it had like a lasting impact on how I pronounce my words. But I also used to watch loads of Only Fools and Horses, so it could have gone either way, but I kind of ended up sounding like Tommy Pickles. So that's just what we have now. And forever now, people are always like trying to work out where the hell I'm from. But I think that there's some advantages to that. Like, people can't stereotype me based on my voice because they can't work out like what social class I'm in or whereabouts I live or anything like that. So I don't know, I'm into my weird voice. Eventually, it took a while, but I'm into it now. What are your opinions on the role Avon plays in the community? Well, as someone who's on their board of directors, well, I only joined the board like last year, and obviously I'd known about Avon since I was a kid. They've been around since 2001, which is, I was like 5 in 2001. And they play a really, like, having seen it from like an outsider's perspective and then seeing it from the inside, like they play a really big role in bringing the community together and creating spaces in real life and online for the community and connecting communities around the world. Like, they have a lot of connections to ACE groups all the way in India and Brazil and like everywhere, and just kind of like keeping their fingers on the pulse and making sure that the media does a good job when they're like representing us. Like, we get a lot of like the media requests go through Avon, and making sure that the website and everything, physical and online spaces, are just safe, inclusive places that people feel comfortable. And yeah, I think that they actually play like a really big role, and they do a really good job. Like, I think that there is a weird idea that like people picture Avon being like this apprentice like boardroom of like these big intimidating like ace overlords pulling the strings, but really it's just a bunch of very committed volunteers who do a lot of work behind the scenes, and you wouldn't be able to pick them out in the street. Like, they're pretty anonymous people, but they put in a lot of work, and they don't get enough credit for that. So the Avon board and the social media team and the mods on the websites and the tech people, like, they do a really good job. If given $1 million shopping spree, where would you shop and what would you spend it on? I get loads of hair and platform boots and band t-shirts. Probably. Yeah, I feel like that's actually what I would get. Nothing too, I could probably get loads of designer clothes, but I don't like how that many designer clothes look. So I would just have like $1 million worth of like band t-shirts and leather jackets and like patches and big chunky new rock boots and all that kind of stuff. Do you, as an Aro ace, do you ever get worried that your relationship with people will never be viewed as a romantic, valued as much as a romantic partner? I mean, I don't really have a relationship that's kind of in that same lane, but I do consider that when I do get one, that there is a good chance that people are not going to take that as seriously as if we said we're dating. But I know I don't let people's, like, the value other people place on what I do, like, determine, like as long as the other person in the relationship values it, then that's all that matters, really. Like, other people's opinions on it should not make a huge difference. I mean, legally it might make a difference, and then that's a kind of a bridge you'll have to cross, but interpersonally, I'm not too stressed about it. Do you ever have intrusive thoughts that you might not actually be asexual / aromantic, that maybe you're gray ace / aro / demi? I mean, for aromanticism, not really. For asexuality, I mean, you can use whatever label you like. I feel like there are people that feel a lot of things, and someone would class that differently to how they class it themselves. So I feel like it's more just about how you feel about it that matters. But I don't know, maybe if I'm like super hormonal, then I might be like I feel like very horny. I'm like a horny ace right now. But again, that never really translates into me wanting to have sex with somebody or appreciating that thought. So I'm always like, even if I do just cross my mind, like, would I want to do that right now? Then I'm like, nah, I can satisfy this needle by myself. So yeah, still ace. Has there ever been a fictional character that's really resonated with you experience-wise? No. What's your favorite memory and why? I mean, I have a lot of good memories. But like my go-to like happy place is probably like my college. I went to a very cozy boarding school in the countryside for 2 years. I was a day student, but it was a boarding school. And yeah, just like the mischief I used to get up to when I was 18, like just spending my free periods wandering through the forest and getting lost and missing philosophy club, or hanging out in my teacher's offices, or I don't know, just like messing around in the day student room or waiting for the train and setting things on fire because I was bored. Like, don't do that, by the way. Yeah, that's just like, that's my happy place. I mean, I have a lot of lovely childhood memories. I've had a very happy life, but yeah, first thing that comes to mind is probably my college years. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Right here, but with more money. Advice for being authentic. You're only gonna live your life once. Like, that's all that's guaranteed. So do you really want to spend it pretending to be something you're not? Like, do you really want to waste your time like that? People aren't gonna like you for you if you're not being authentic. Did you go to university? If so, what did you major in? I went to university and I got a BSc, Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology, first class. And then I went on to do a master's, at UCL, one of the toughest universities in the country. I got my master's in 1 year, and it was a master of science degree in crime science. And I got a merit, and I love to name drop that because it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and people are usually very surprised that I have a master's degree from UCL. So yeah, that was my majors. In the UK we don't call it that, but you said you were a photographer before modeling. How did you get into that? Well, I'm creative. I'm a creative person, but I have no hand-eye coordination, and photography was something that I could be creative in and not have to physically draw or put something together. So I kind of got into that in like secondary school in art, when we had to do projects, and then I just kind of kept doing it, and I still do it. And I'm using my photography camera to film this right now. What's your most wholesome encounter with a stranger? Probably when I was at, I don't know, the first thing that comes to mind is like when I was at the London Queer Fashion Show and I missed my train and I kind of got stranded. And I went back to some of the models and I was like, hey, like, do you want to party or something? Can I just tag along with you because I have nowhere to go? And one of them, Rain Dove, was kind enough to just let me have their hotel room. It was a really nice room. And we had literally only just met. We'd spoken for like 5 minutes. So that was a very nice thing to do for someone you don't know. I mean, I could have been a crazy person that just set the whole place on fire for all they knew. But yeah, that really saved my ass that day. And that was, yeah, that was a very wholesome encounter, I think. Did you go through an I don't have to tell people I'm asexual because it's none of their business who I sleep with and don't sleep with phase? I did, yes. I'm actually really skilled at avoiding conversations about sexuality in general. I mean, there are people who had known me for literally years and years and years, like friends who didn't know I was asexual, because I was just very good at dodging that conversation. Yeah, I just didn't really feel like I needed to mention it. And sometimes I still don't feel like I need to mention it. If people don't ask, I tend not to say it. So yeah, I did have that. Maybe I'm still in it. Despite popular belief, I don't know. What's the most bizarre response you've gotten to telling someone you're asexual? I had two guys do a celebratory virgin dance, like linked arms, like hopping around like some kind of like weird, like, well, I know it was almost like an Irish jig, in response to them assuming that because I'm asexual I must be a virgin, and therefore they finally found a pure woman, and they were very, very happy. And it was the lamest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was deciding, like, is this meant to make me like you? Because I am like yeah, that's had the opposite effect. That's probably the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. What would you like to see happen in the next 5 years regarding where ace activism can reach? I would like to see it, I'd just like to see asexuality be at the same point as all the other orientations and spoken about in the same way and included in the same way. I'd like to see us in education. I'd like to see us in policies. I'd love to see us in the media. I'd love to see us just being more visible and just being like more accepted and taken more seriously. There's a whole lot of things that need to happen for that to happen, not just within our community, but in the way we interact with other communities and how they respond to us. But that's what I would like to see. And when someone said, what inspires you to continue being an asexual activist even through all the hate I receive, like, that's it. Like, I'm aware that what I'm doing is helpful. I feel like I'm in a good position to do it. I have the support of most of the community, and I have like the resources, and I have the connections, and I've kind of developed like the skill, and I'm not afraid to do it. I'm happy to put myself out there. So I feel like I've kind of, yeah, and just knowing that what I'm doing is helpful, and like I have this vision and I really want us to get there, and I feel like if you want something done right, sometimes you gotta do it yourself. So that inspires me to keep going. Tips for dealing with the exhausting someone will change your mind response. I love to turn that on people. Like, if I have like someone who's like straight tell me that, like if a guy's like, I'm sure you'll change your mind, I'd be like, yeah, I'm sure you just need some good dick and you'll be gay as hell. Like, if you can use that on me, then I can use that on you. Yeah, I just switched it on them. It's like, you wouldn't like someone to apply that to you, would you? Like, that kind of highlights how stupid that is. And yeah, usually when I switch it, they get it. How long have you been modeling? Why did you choose to do it? I mean, I've been kind of doing it, I don't know, since I was like 18, so it's been a while. I chose to do it partially because I'd exhausted every other hobby out there, like literally everything. And I was kind of on like a child like modeling agency thing anyway, but I was like 16, so I was kind of aging out of it. And then as I got a bit older, I was like, you know, I want to kind of go into the alternative genre because that's the kind of clothes I like, and there aren't many black models. And again, if you want something done right, do it yourself. I can't complain that there isn't much representation for us if there aren't that many of us actually trying to do it. So I just thought I would try to do it. And then I just kind of branched out from there, and now I do lots of things. What's your favorite type of fruit? I like Sharon fruit and cucumbers. How did you get into goth subculture? I mean, I feel like people probably think I'm way more gothic than I actually am. I feel like my aesthetic ends up being gothic just because I like wearing a lot of black and I shop at a lot of gothic brands and I work with a lot of gothic brands, but my style is inspired by heavy metal. I'm just trying to like, I just exude this heavy metal energy, and I think that just translates into my clothes. Like, I mean, a lot of the time I'm just wearing like band t-shirts and like leather jackets and stuff, and I don't know if you'd call that gothic, but I know it kind of ranges from like suburban like 90s metalhead and kind of gothic, I guess. But I don't listen to much like gothic music. I don't like, I'm not that like well versed in gothic history, so I feel like if I was like to do a goth test, I would totally fail. I don't even read much gothic literature. I just kind of exude a gothic vibe, I guess. I wouldn't quite say I'm in goth subculture, but my style does veer that way. I feel like I've answered all these questions. How do you block out haters so well? I see invalidation and I'm like, frick, am I even asexual? I mean, I know. I mean, again, it's kind of like, it depends what they're hating for. If it's just a troll, that I'm like, again, you're not relevant, that's fine. And I'm quite secure within myself, so people saying stuff to me isn't enough to make me like question my worth, I guess. I feel like, I know the best thing to do is just kind of work on yourself, and then other people won't be able to hurt you so much. I have quite a thick skin after a lifetime of people giving me BS. It makes you quite resistant. I feel like I've naturally been quite resistant. I've naturally been a nonconformist, and when you're naturally like that, and you kind of then have to go through all these experiences as well, I know you just become very resistant, I think. Any faith books or base characters? I know Loveless by Alice Osman. I know that one. I have that one. That was sent to me recently, and that's good. I mean, I don't really read like young adult fiction, but as far as young adult fiction goes, it's a good one. What else? There was also one called Ace of Hearts. That one had an ace character in it. That's what I've got off the top of my head. And I feel like that's all my questions. I finally freaking finished. Oh my god, I've been talking for like 3 hours, I swear to god. Okay, now I'm like really done. Really done. So, yes, if you want to find more of me, Instagram at the Yasmin Benoit, Twitter at the Yasmin Benoit. You know the stuff. Google me and you'll find it. Thank you guys for continuing to come to this channel and sit through this ridiculously long video and subscribe to me. I'm sorry for neglecting you. I can't promise I won't do it again. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm signing off. I want to make cookies so bad. I'm so hungry. Oh my god, okay. Cool. Bye guys. See ya.